Make haste, for it is before the walls of Minas Tirith that the doom of our time will be decided. And if the tide be not stemmed there, then it will flow over all the fair fields of Rohan, and even in this hold among the hills there shall be no refuge.
Welcome to the Wayward Wizards radio program. Today we are reading Book 5, Chapter 3 of Lord of the Rings, The Muster of Rohan. My name is Zach.
My name is Logan.
This is an in-betweener.
Man,
if there ever was one. If there ever was an in-betweener, this is it. This is just, they need to get from Isengard area to Minas Tirith somehow, and he has to like describe the way that they move in a realistic way. But oh man, is it dull. I mean, it's weird. It's an in-betweener with a like ghost story in between.
Lore and ghost story stuff. There's like sentences where I'm like, that's great. Like the king shows up and like all these tents are organized and stuff is all put together. And I think like Eowyn did all that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And like Merry, missing Pippin and.
Oh, Merry's saying that he would like run behind the train even if he shows up a week late and his feet fall off.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many little good things like that, but it's also kind of like, what exactly, why do we have to have this? But it's like Tolkien needs us to be on the journey with the characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he always takes that. There's always a perspective character, right? Whether it's Merry or Pippin or whomever. It's not like we're just being told a story. It's like we're being, I don't know, ushered along on the journey.
Yeah, we're riding along.
Which I guess is the magic of Lord of the Rings.
It's strange. There's things that he does that are just not what we would do. I get it. Yeah. Every time I have some sort of like Tolkien needs an editor comment, I feel the need to like qualify it by saying I actually would not have it any other way. It's perfect. No. It's exactly what I want. Yeah, I don't want anything else. But it's just such a weird decision. The two things that don't happen from like a POV but are related to the reader through dialogue, sort of like after the fact, that always stick out to me are, we don't see the fall of Isengard as a like POV chapter.
Merry and Pippin relate it to us, right?
They tell us like in this kind of like monologue, they are telling Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas kind of what happened since the last time they saw them. Deeply strange. One of the most exciting sequences in the entire book just completely happens off page.
Yeah.
The other one is like just this last chapter, we had all of this like build up to the Paths of the Dead. And we don't see what the dead do. We're told later. Like we don't actually see them in action. Like it's related to us after the fact. It's just a strange decision to make. So why do we get this? Why do we get the like multiple day long ride with these characters? Why couldn't we just jump straight to the Battle of Pelennor Fields? Like if we were telling the story, we would just jump straight to the Ride of the Rohirrim, which is also just like completely inspiring and awesome. And then after the battle, Éomer would be talking to Aragorn and be like, oh yeah, we had to, last time we saw you ran off to the Paths of the Dead and rode for several days. We stopped off at Edoras, we got like geared up and, Merry said that he wanted to come, but, we didn't let him. And like, we'd get that off because it's just kind of not necessary to the like plot. Well, it's necessary to the plot. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be related in this way.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I don't know if this is the reason why, but both of the examples you gave of Merry and Pippin relating the siege of Isengard and then what the dead actually do with Aragorn and Gimli and company and Legolas and company, strikes me as like a Greek chorus thing. So I think that he's maybe just repeating kind of a classical way of telling stories,
I think that's right.
right?
Yeah.
But but it but it's strange because I think it strikes us as strange because Lord of the Rings is still modern enough
Yeah.
to like hold our attention in a modern way that like classic literature doesn't exactly. So it holds our attention in that way, and then you keep expecting it to like repeat the patterns that you know about from TV and film and other novels and stuff like that, and then it
Right.
doesn't, and then
Yeah.
you sort of like trip over it, and you're like, then it like kind of like forces you to like look down at the ground. The ground is the book, right? That you're
Yeah.
like walking through,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, like this is a lot different than I kind of thought it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's that juxtaposition or tension or whatever. But it's frustrating because I really want, and I mean, I guess we get this in the movies, but I really want to see, I
Yeah.
want Tolkien to tell us exactly what Treebeard did, how he did it, the way the ends. I love that description from Tolkien himself, not kind of related through Marion. I mean, it's all from Tolkien, but
Yeah. Give me the
anyway.
play-by-play of the battle, man.
Yeah, I want the play-by-play of the battle, and like, frankly, man, like reading this chapter today, I got to the end of it and I was like, this is a pretty short chapter. And then I was like, well, no, it's like 13 pages. It's not overly short. But that's because I didn't really stop and like note very much because nothing really happens. I just read. Like, if you look at this chapter compared to some of my others, like I've got like 3 or 4 underlines,
Yeah.
and that's it. And like one little arrow of something I wanted to remember to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, it's just kind of like breezes through, and you're like, okay, I guess we'll go on to the Siege of Gondor next.
The zooming in and the zooming out. In Fellowship of the Ring, there's very little zooming out. It's lots of zooming in. It's lots of like sort
Yeah,
of tedious logistics. It's really not until after they leave Rivendell where I just remember, when they're moving south towards Moria, there was a sentence where it's like, and then they walked for 3 days, and I was like, oh, like that almost never happens. Usually we
yeah.
would get some detail from those 3 days. This, in my mind, could have just been, and then they rode for 3 days. Like I don't think I need.
I kind of think it could have been. I really do.
But there is just there's something special about Tolkien where, as someone who saw war firsthand twice in his lifetime, he did not want to glorify battle. He did not want to romanticize war. That being said, when he does, it's some of the most captivating writing you've ever read. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
it's so
coming
good.
up on the Siege of Gondor. The severed heads of the men of Gondor being catapulted over the walls during the siege. The Battle of Pelennor Fields and the description of battle in that is just so exhilarating and captivating. So like when he gives it, that he can deliver. It's not that he's bad at describing war.
No.
Even the like secondhand relation of like what happened in the fall of Isengard is great. But it's just really strange that he that he lingers where he does, and it gives it this sense of like almost like this sense that it's like real, because history is not just like battle after battle after battle.
Right. And I was just going to say, like, I think that he really like loves these Anglo-Saxon guys that he created.
Yeah.
Or that he's, have been inspired by.
Yeah. Anglo-Saxons with horses. Yeah.
Beowulf and all that kind of stuff. Like he just loves these dudes and the way they talk, and the way that they talk is so different than the way they talk in Minas Tirith too. Like the way Eowyn and Theoden in particular talk to each other has this totally different like accent, right?
Yeah. It's a different flavor. Yeah.
And you can just tell he just loves this, and I mean, again, like we've talked about this before, but that's another thing that Lord of the Rings makes Lord of the Rings so special, is that it's such a work of just a passion project, work of love, and something he, literally, literally affected his mental and physical health in ways that were really bad for him. and that's all on the page, you know. And so the fact that he was like sweating over this chapter at some point,
Yeah.
you just kind of think like, thank you, you know.
How many weeks of his life did he devote to writing this chapter, I wonder?
And we're sitting here like, this chapter kind of sucks.
Yeah. But it doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't suck. It's not bad. There are really beautiful parts of it and things, but it's just, you're kind of like, I don't know why are we doing this with Mary right now? I don't quite get it. But that being said, it also sets up all kinds of stuff, you know? Anyone needs to be there. Mary needs to get kitted out.
We need like Dernhelm needs to pick up Mary. We need like the little hints that Dernhelm's not all that he seems. Yeah.
And it's really important for Mary to advocate for himself and long to be at the battle so that we get some insight into Éowyn's decision, right? Because she's in the same place as Mary, in a way. And all of that makes the end so much more special than it would be if it was just like, oh, Éowyn did come, you know?
This is like the broth of the soup.
You know, otherwise it's just a bowl full of
hot dog water,
odds and ends, you know. Hot dog
Drink
water.
your hot dog water, Mr. Frodo. Yeah.
Mr. Frodo. Right.
All right. Now that we've talked like sufficient amount of shit, let's jump into what we love about this chapter.
Our real task.
I mean, the first couple sentences here are really beautifully written in it. It's just an interesting, like, kind of transitional sentence. It goes, "Now all roads were running together to the east to meet the coming of war and the onset of the shadow. And even as Pippin stood at the great gate of the city and saw the prince of Dol Amroth ride in with his banners, the king of Rohan came down out of the hills." So that establishes a few things. I mean, it's like, it lets us know where Pippin is. It gives us like a sense of like time and space here. It's taken them a while to get to this point. It shows how fast Gandalf and Pippin were able to ride.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about how it's going to take a week to get to Minas Tirith from where they are now. And Gandalf and Pippin are already there. So it shows how fast they were able to move. And it's like basically saying like, okay, now all these like different strings are being knit together for this one thing, which is fighting off this onset of war, which is called the Shadow with a capital S. And, you know, it's literally the weather is starting to change. The sky is starting to darken even in this chapter. So Mary has been riding along on Stibba, his little shaggy little pony in the mountains. And he's been kind of following along, lightening the hearts of everybody who sees him. But he still feels like baggage. You know, he recognizes that he's not an important person. And I think it's a really interesting like look into his worldview. A little bit further down the page, it says, he loved mountains, or he had loved the thought of them marching on the edge of stories brought from far away. But now he was borne down by the insupportable weight of Middle Earth. He longed to shut out the immensity in a quiet room by a fire. So he's torn in like a couple different directions. I mean, he in a few pages is about to be begging to be allowed to come to war, but he's also pining for home. Says he was very tired, for though he had ridden slowly, they had ridden with very little rest. Hour after hour, for nearly 3 weary days, he had jogged up and down over passes and through long dales and across many streams.
I like the detail that when he, you know, rides by the king's side, Mary doesn't notice that many of the riders smile to see the two together, which I think reinforces that kind of childlike way that people view the hobbits.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the hobbits do have a inherently childlike quality.
Yeah, his name is literally Mary, you know? It's like
yeah. And it's not just that they're small, although I think that plays in here.
They have this like unquenchable positivity.
But it's such a great detail because it makes you love Mary and the king, and it makes you love the riders who are these like tough guys, right? But they also have like a affection for their king and an affection for Mary, and you can also tell that they have an affection for children. Those are like people that you want to like know and associate with, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That even though they're, you know, on the road and up against this task, there's still these moments, and
Yeah, these are good people. These are solid
yeah,
people. You know, we talked about how much Tolkien loves like these like Anglo-Saxon guys. I think it's, you know, worth mentioning that Tolkien's like scholarship at Oxford, he was the professor of Anglo-Saxon. Like he's reading Beowulf all day and he's thinking about Anglo-Saxon all day. And we kind of get this like a peek of this through Merry and like how he hears the Rohirrim speak. So the language of the Rohirrim, when we hear them speak, they are literally speaking Anglo-Saxon. That is their
yeah,
language. This is a dead language by the time we reach the modern era, but it influences English like along like a kind of like parallel stream to Latin and other like streams of language. But Tolkien loved it. He thought it was beautiful. He loved the sound of it. He loved their poetry. He loved the way that they saw the world and thought and the way that their language expressed that. But you can just kind of imagine Merry like kind of trotting along, like hearing people speaking Anglo-Saxon and like trying to follow it. He goes, "It was a language in which there seemed to be many words that he knew, though spoken more richly and strongly than in the Shire. Yet he could not piece the words together. At times some writer would lift up his clear voice in stirring song, and Merry felt his heart leap, though he did not know what it was about."
mm-hmm.
So like he's in love with the shape and the sounds of the words as much as he can sense the feeling and the ancientry behind the words, even if he can't understand it. That's someone who loves language, you know, kind of that's Tolkien peeking through the page.
Absolutely. We have a little reflection here by Mary, wondering about where Pippin had got to and what would become of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. Then he suddenly thinks of Frodo and Sam, and he's like, "Oh, geez, I'm forgetting them."
Yeah, yeah, because they have kind of split off into two separate streams at this point, you know.
Right. And yet they're more important than all the rest of us. And I came to help them, but now they must be hundreds of miles away if they're still alive.
He shivered.
Yeah, it's a I think really true human moment where you're invested in your own
Yeah,
issues and problems, even
yeah,
though you're part of a bigger,
yeah.
a bigger story. And
It's like, oh, I lost the plot for a minute there. Yeah,
right, and like the most important part of the story is Frodo and Sam. And maybe as a reader, I'm kind of like, where are Frodo and Sam? We just started the last book of this and you haven't really mentioned them.
yeah.
We
3
don't
chapters
really,
in now.
yeah. It's a nice little aside to like remember the whole company sort of still being together in a way, even though they're not physically,
Right,
together.
right. You're so right. Of course, his thought first goes to Pippin, who's like, you know,
Yeah,
his
his
number
buddy.
one guy. And then it kind of like shifts out to the 3 hunters who, you know, have been his closest people. And then he thinks about Frodo and Sam.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this kind of like widening out of his attention and his care. Yeah. They come to Harrowdale. This is another weird thing about this chapter. It's like they don't go straight to Edoras. You know, they make it to Edoras eventually, but they stop and have this like mustering before they get to Edoras. And Eowyn and other people from Edoras meet them here. And this is like kind of the staging area of this army, but it's also the entrance to the Paths of the Dead. This is where the ghost story part that we mentioned earlier kind of comes in. It maybe it just like gives these characters a reason to talk about the Paths of the Dead,
Yeah, maybe.
but it's just it's a strange plot choice. It's like, why don't they just stage at Edoras? Why don't they just go straight to there?
Is this the traditional place, or maybe it's flatter or something? You can like see everybody in one spot and kind of see how many people you have or something. You couldn't maybe do that in Edoras? I don't know. It's weird.
They're catching people like, you know, again, like Rohan is not just one town, you know,
Yeah.
like you might kind of think from watching the movies. There are like, you know, there are people that are like fill this land, and he is mustering these people. So I guess it makes sense from that perspective. Yeah, I just think it's important to note that they are like this space that they're at now is the entrance to the Paths of the Dead.
Yeah.
And Gandalf has told people to muster here instead of at Edoras. But then they're going to be in Edoras in just like a couple days from now. So it's kind of strange. It's just kind of a strange detour. Éomer says to Theoden. I thought this was also like a little bit strange. So after they arrive in Harrowdale, Theoden said, "This journey is over, maybe, but I have far yet to go. 2 nights ago, the moon was full. In the morning, I shall ride to Edoras and the gathering of the Mark." And Éomer has this like kind of strange moment. This seemed kind of out of character. He goes, "If you would take my counsel, you would then return hither until the war is over, lost or won." So he's like, yeah, go to Edoras tomorrow, gather some people up, but then come back to this Harrowdale place and set up here. But Theoden smiles and he says, "Nay, my son, for so I will call you. Speak not the soft words of Wormtongue in my old ears." And he draws himself up and looks back and he goes, "Long in the space of days it seems since I rode west, but never will I lean on a staff again. If the war is lost, what good will be my hiding in the hills? And if it is won, what grief will it be, even if I fall, spending my last strength?" So Theoden's like, yeah, don't speak ease to me. Don't give me an easy option anymore. That's what Wormtongue has had me do the last however many years.
Right. Éomer is just trying to take care of his king,
Yeah.
But the king, and this is maybe the third or fourth time that Theoden has kind of alluded to his own death. He really expects, I think, to die in this battle. But it's different than the way that, and maybe it's there to kind of offset Theoden against Denethor, who's like already kind of retreating. Whereas Theoden, even though Theoden has like it's like fatalistic, it's not like retiring or retreating. It's fatalistic, and I'm going to face down this thing.
And it's like a penance, he's like, I've been idle.
Yeah.
To the point of my son dying. And now you, my nephew, I'm going to call you my son, and I'm going to kind of do it right this time.
Yeah, right.
There's something really beautiful about that.
There is.
It definitely has this kind of like, like when Peter tells Jesus, don't say that you're going to be crucified.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't say that you're like, he's like, don't say that. It can't be. And he goes, get behind me, Satan,
Yeah, right. Theoden is personally committed, and his personal commitment as the sovereign of Rohan means that his entire people, are committed. And I do think there's something about that that's really important for Tolkien, that Rohan be fully invested in the defense of Minas Tirith and the war against, Mordor.
Yes. So they ride on into this valley, and it says, "So the king of the Mark came victorious out of the west to Dunharrow, beneath the feet of the White Mountains. There he found the remaining strength of his people already assembled. For as soon as his coming was known, captains rode to meet him at the ford, bearing messages from Gandalf. Dunharry," I hope that's how you pronounce that, "chieftain of the folk of Harrowdale, was at their head." So this is like the guy who is like, the chieftain of this area. We get some news from him that 3 days ago, Shadowfax and Gandalf came bringing tidings of the victory at Helm's Deep, and that he tells them to hasten the gathering of like the rest of the riders. And then it says, "And then the winged shadow came." This is something I had to go back. When Gandalf and Pippin are briefly at Edoras during, like, I think in the first chapter of this book, does it mention that the shadow comes like to Edoras, that the Nazgul comes to Edoras?
It comes when Gandalf and Pippin have like stopped somewhere.
I mean, that must be what this is mentioning, because it says, so. Like, Theoden's like, "Oh, the winged shadow." He's like, "Yeah, we saw that like the night that, like, right before Gandalf left us." And he goes, "Maybe, yet the same or another bird like it," this is Dunharry speaking, "yet the same bird or another like it, a flying darkness in the shape of a monstrous bird, passed over Edoras that morning, and all men were shaken with fear, for it stooped upon Meduseld, and it came low, almost to the gable. Then it was that Gandalf counseled us not to assemble in the fields, but to meet you here in the valley under the mountains. And he bade us to kindle no more lights or fires than the barest need." So is it the case he's saying like the winged shadow came and then Gandalf came after it, or is he saying that the winged shadow came when Gandalf was there?
I think the shadow came when Gandalf was there.
And it says it stooped upon Meduseld, which is Edoras, like the great hall at Edoras.
So it landed on Edoras?
It says, for it stooped upon Meduseld.
What does stooped mean? To me, stoop means landed, but it might just mean like kind of like flew over.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's just such an interesting image, though. Like, can you imagine the Golden Hall with a Nazgul perched on top of it? That's
pretty dramatic. I'd love to see that illustrated.
So they're going up to this hold in the shadow of the Dwimmerberg, or the haunted mountain, and there's this like, ancient road. It says he was on a road this is Merry. He was on a road the like of which he had never seen before, a great work of men's hands and years beyond the reach of song. Upwards it wound, coiling like a snake, boring its way across the sheer slope of rock. Steep as a stair, it looped backwards and forwards as it climbed. Up it horses could walk, and wains could be slowly hauled, those are carts. But no enemy could come that way except out of the air, if it was defended from above. And at each turn of the road, there are these strange stone carvings of like squat, round, fat men that the Rohirrim called the Pukul men. And it says no power of terror was left in them, but Merry gazed at them with wonder and a feeling almost of pity as they loomed up mournfully in the dusk. So there are these, like, this is an ancient road, and there's evidence that there were people here even before the Numenorians, the Men of the Sea, came back. These are ancient, kind of like, we're going to meet them a little bit later, like as they're riding to the battle, and they're almost like kind of like Aboriginal people. Would you say? Is that a way of describing them?
Yeah, I suppose. We'll have to spend some time
Talking about the Pukul men?
Talking about the Pukul men and how they talk and things, but I love this detail, and I love the part about the road is so tied to kind of the British islands, Britain and Ireland, the way the Romans, made these roads, and then 100 years later, people looked at them and were like, I don't understand how this was possible.
Even like Stonehenge, it's like, all right, we have these Roman roads that we can understand.
We know that men made them.
But then we have things like Stonehenge, which are like way, way older. They were old like a long time before this. So yeah, that also just like kind of adds to the historicity of it. I mean, obviously the Pukul men were cut out of the movies, partly just because it's like, all right, like, geez, like, do we need another culture in this story?
It's problematic, I think.
Yeah.
Well, depicting them off the page is certainly problematic, but even on the page, it's a little bit like, what was he?
Yeah, why is this in here?
Thinking. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, this mountain is called the Dwimmerberg, or Haunted Mountain, and it's just like kind of like rising above them. And it says, dividing the upland into two, there marched a double line of unshaped standing stones that dwindled into the dusk and vanished into the trees. Those who dared to follow that road came soon to the black Dimholt under Dwimmerberg, and the menace of the pillar of stone, and the yawning shadow of the forbidden door. That's some great prose right there. So yeah, I mean, this makes me think even more of Stonehenge. You have these,
the standing stones.
It kind of calls back to the Barrow Downs, and the standing stones that are there. They're just completely ancient. And it says, such was the dark Donharrow, the work of long forgotten men. Their name was lost, and no song or legend remembered it. For what purpose they had made this place, as a town or secret temple or a tomb of kings, none in Rohan could say. So they're coming up to this place. There's, a tall pavilion set up. There's a bunch of tents for men to sleep in. And when they come there, who is ready to greet them? Eowyn. So as they drew near, Merry saw that there was a rider, and he realizes that it's a woman with a long braided hair gleaming in the twilight. And she's wearing a helm, and she's clad to the waist like a warrior and girded with a sword. So we get kind of a little bit of a rehashing from Eowyn. Theoden asks after Aragorn, and Eowyn is still down bad for Aragorn. She's like all depressed and pining, and Éomer's like, whither did he go? And she's like, I do not know. He came at night and rode away yestermorn, ere the sun had climbed over the mountaintops. He is gone. She says it like he's like already dead.
Yeah.
And Theoden's like, hey, you're grieved, daughter. What has happened? And he's like, did he mention that door that we can see from like where we're standing right now? Did he speak of the road, of the paths of the dead? And Éowyn says, yes, Lord. He has passed into the shadow from which none have returned. I could not dissuade him. He is gone. Then Éomer's like, then our paths are sundered. Then he's lost, and we must ride without him, and our hope dwindles.
Yeah, they really take this seriously. Then Mary starts to ask, what are the paths of the dead? What does it all mean? They've left me, but my turn will come soon enough, I suppose.
In the midst of these gloomy thoughts, he suddenly remembered that he was very hungry, and he got up to go and see if anyone else in the strange camp felt the same. He's just like, hey, anybody else feeling a little peckish?
A little peckish? Want a little bite to eat?
As that happens, well, I think it's funny. He has like a little a little tent that's pitched up right next to the king's tent, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah, it's cute.
And he's kind of just sitting there thinking all these gloomy thoughts about the path of the dead and, wondering what it all means. And then as he's like feeling hungry, a trumpet blows, I guess to let everybody know it's dinner time, and a king's man comes and tells him to come and eat with Theoden. And this is where the ghost stories start. It's actually kind of a cool little aside.
I think we find out who the skeleton guy is here.
Baldur, son of Brago. Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't heard anything about it, and no one has ventured in since Baldur, son of Brago, passed the door and was never seen among men again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was supposed to be the king. Or he was he was the heir, but he
was the heir of Brago. Yeah.
I don't know if he was trying to kind of prove himself or go find some, gems or jewels or something for the king, but he did not make it back.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like he seems to have done it out of like arrogance to like show how brave he was. He's like, I'm not afraid of these haunted hills. I'm going to go. It says, Baldur, son of Brago, passed the door. It was never seen among men again. A rash vow he spoke as he drained the horn at that feast which Brago made to hollow new-built Meduseld, and he came never to the high seat of which he was the heir. Éowyn says, it is said of Harrowdale, but little while ago a great host in strange array passed by. Whence they came none knew, but they went up the stony road and vanished into the hills, as if they went to keep a tryst. So is she describing
That's interesting.
the ride of Aragorn right here? Like, do you remember how we got that like scene where the townspeople are saying like the king of the dead is coming, and they like shut all the doors and go inside? Right. I guess like, so that was a couple nights ago. So I think all those people now have been mustered to this like, place.
Oh, I see.
Like those are people who are being mustered right now. So like word has kind of gotten back to her, like, because the tryst I think is the, because the Stone of Eric is called a trysting place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And so they kind of don't know that's Aragorn who kind of made it through the other side, I guess. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Do you want to kind of talk about the ghost story? For me, it kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade a little bit. Theoden is telling the story. It says, Brago and his son Baldur climbed the stair of the hold and came before the door. On the threshold sat an old man, aged beyond guess of years, tall and kingly he had been, but now he was withered as an old stone. Indeed, for stone they took him, for he moved not, and he said no word until they sought to pass him by and enter. Then a voice came out of him as if it were out of the ground, and to their amaze it spoke in the Western tongue, the way is shut. So who is this guy? I don't know. Then they halted and looked at him, and they saw that he lived still, but he did not look at them. The way is shut, his voice said again. It was made by those who are dead, and the dead keep it until the time comes. The way is shut. And when will that time be, said Baldur, son of Brago. But no answer did he ever get, for the old man died in that hour and fell upon his face, and no other tidings of the ancient dwellers of the mountains have folk ever learned. Yet maybe at last the time foretold has come, and Aragorn may pass.
So they don't know about the prophecy,
I guess not.
right?
No.
But they do know that there's some time, or they know something about there perhaps being a time when someone will come
Yeah.
and be able to pass through.
Let's talk about the Red Arrow. So after their little ghost story time, Hirgon, errand rider of Denethor, comes, and he brings with him the Red Arrow and calls the people of Rohan to come and aid Minas Tirith in their time of need.
So this red arrow is a symbol of
Yes.
calling.
Yes.
It's the way that Gondor at least calls Rohan, maybe everybody, but Rohan to war. He said, "Hirgon I am, errand rider of Denethor, who bring you this token of war." So we talked a little bit about the beacons of Gondor, but it seems like there's another. This is more important than the beacons of Gondor.
Because we talked about how the beacons of Gondor only kind of come up to the edge of Rohan.
Yeah. So maybe he rides from there.
Well, he rides, I think, straight from Minas Tirith, like straight to meet the king. I think that's what the implication
So why do
is.
you need beacons?
The beacons are for the fiefs of Gondor. So
not for Rohan.
No.
So the movie really stretches
Simplifies
those things
it.
and simplifies it. I think this is pretty cool to have a dude show up and be like, "Here it is," and you're like, "Oh, geez, he's got the red arrow."
Yeah,
we need to we need to make our way.
The movies just kind of simplify it where you can literally see the beacons like from the Golden Hall, but Rohan doesn't have the same like responsibilities to Gondor as like the fiefs of Gondor do. So like Prince Imrahil, he sees one of the beacons and he comes. There's no choice. Rohan, there's a choice attached to it. They aren't like Denethor is not their steward. If there was a king in Gondor, there's a different I think weight attached to it. But this harkens back to like how the Rohirrim like came to be like in the first place. Like the Errol comes to the aid of Gondor during war, and they're sort of like gifted this land beyond kind of the reach of Minas Tirith as their kingdom. That's why Theoden is called a king and not a prince. So this is like the official call, like saying like, hey, the same way you helped us like years ago, like back in the time of like Brago and Baldor,
we need your help again.
We need your help again. Like the same friendship that you showed us back, centuries ago. We need that. But I think it's interesting. He says, "My lord does not issue any command to you. He begs you only to remember old friendship and oaths long spoken, and for your own good to do all that you may." So he's saying like, he's basically calling them to fulfill oaths. I think there's some parallels to be drawn here to the oath breakers. They're similarly being called in a time of need, but they're going to keep faith and they're not going to go against their oaths. The errand rider says, "Make haste, for it is before the walls of Minas Tirith that the doom of our time will be decided. And if the tide be not stemmed there, then it will flow over all the fair fields of Rohan, and even this hold among the hills, there shall be no refuge."
I love that Theoden responds and says, "Even if Rohan itself felt no peril, still we would come to his aid."
Exactly. He's like, even if the stakes weren't as high as they are, we would still hold trust if we were called. And he says, like, I'm mustering my people right now, but if I got everybody that I could, it'd be 10,000 men. But like war is already on us. We can't just like, even if we were to march all 10,000 like and be victorious, like Sauron's armies could come and destroy my people who are left behind. So I can't spare everybody. So I'm going to leave 4,000 for like kind of defense of our borders, and then I'm going to send 6,000.
We find out that kind of toward the end of the chapter that orcs are attacking in the north, north of Rohan.
Exactly.
I think.
Yeah.
And so those men needed to be left to defend, the people who were still there.
Theoden says like, "Okay, I'll be there in a week." And Hirgon is like, if it takes you 7 days, to get there, then you're just going to find ruined walls. So like you got to go faster than that. So like we'll see now like how they're about to cover this like incredible distance very quickly because they don't have that much time.
And that's part of why the logic behind Mary being left behind. Mary's little pony Stibba can't keep up, and he's not going to. The king is not going to put him on somebody else's horse. He just doesn't think that that's like a burden that they should carry. And I think there's an idea that like Mary's just not cut out for like a big battle,
No.
Which is true, I think. I mean, it's not like a ludicrous thing to think about the hobbits. But, Mary, of course, protests and says, I won't be left. I won't. And he's saying it to himself, repeating this over and over to himself. He fell asleep at last in his tent. So he's like kind of crying himself to sleep in a way.
Yeah, he saw the red arrow being delivered, and then Theoden's kind of like, go get some rest. I don't need you anymore tonight. He says, be ready to my call as soon as the sun has risen. And Mary's like, I will be ready. He's like, even if you bid me to ride the paths of the dead. And he's like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So just go ahead and go to bed. And as he's like walking away, he's like, yeah, I can already tell this like guy's going to try and tell me to stay behind, and I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. And when he's woken up, he's like, hey, like, why are you waking me up so early? The sun's not even up yet. And the person goes, no, and it will not rise today, Master Hoblita, nor ever again, one would think, under this cloud. But time does not stand still, though the sun be lost. Make haste. Hirgon leaves, and he heads back to Minas Tirith with like great haste. And this is the moment when the king turns to Merry and he says, I'm going to war, Master Meriadoc. In a little while I shall take the road. I release you from my service, but not from my friendship. You shall abide here, and if you will, you shall serve Lady Eowyn, who will govern the folk in my stead. And Merry says, I offer you my sword. I do not want to be parted from you like this, Theoden King. And as all my friends have gone to battle, I should be ashamed to stay behind. He says, it is a long way to run, but run I shall, if I cannot ride, even if I wear my feet off and arrive a week too late.
Eowyn, I think, just shows her kind of like scheming.
Yeah.
Or planning, where she says, come now, Meriadoc, I'll show you the gear I've prepared for you. So she's kind of already put something aside for him.
Yeah, and she says Aragorn asked that she made sure that he was armed for battle.
Yeah, and so maybe she almost takes her like direction from King Aragorn over Theoden in some way here.
Yeah.
To prepare Merry for battle, and then to make sure he's there. It some way honors her love for Aragorn.
Yeah.
And she says, I have granted it, Aragorn's request, as I could, for my heart tells me that you will need such gear ere the end.
Yeah.
And she takes him, and they don't have mail for him, but they give him a leather jerkin and a belt and a knife because he already has a sword. Even though I think to the big people, his sword is a knife.
And she goes, a sword you have, wink. There's like definitely, there's that wink at the camera, a sword you have, wink, a little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But, she gives him all these things, including a shield, kind of similar to what Gimli was given.
Oh, yeah, I missed that.
And she goes, take all these things and bear them to good fortune. Farewell now, Master Meriadoc. Yet maybe we shall meet again, you and I, wink.
Mm-hmm. But she kind of totally misses because he doesn't know that he doesn't know that Durnhelm is her at all.
Yeah, as they're kind of like riding away, it says that Merry sees a young man, less in height and girth than most. He caught the glint of clear gray eyes, and then he shivered, for it came suddenly to him. It was the face of one without hope, who goes in search of death. So that's Eowyn / Durnhelm. They sing.
Yep.
So basically, like right after she gears him up, she goes and she changes into her guise as Durnhelm. And this is the parting. Theoden, like one more time, he says goodbye to his esquire. And it says, but Merry begged for the last time not to be parted from him. It's very similar to the way that Eowyn kind of begs Aragorn multiple times, and Aragorn turns her down multiple times. And he says, this is no journey for such steeds as Stibba, as I have told you. And in such battle as we think to make on the fields of Gondor, What would you do, Master Meriadoc, sword thane though you be, and greater of heart than of stature? Ironically, of course, Merry is about to play a major role in this battle that he was told he wouldn't be able to do anything in. He says, why then, Lord, did you receive me as sword thane, if not to stay by your side? And I would not have it said of me in song only that I was always left behind. And this part stung me. I wanted to be sure and mention this. Theoden says, I received you for your safekeeping, and also to do as I might bid. None of my riders can bear you as burden.
Which is what Merry and Pippin always think of themselves, and Sam all think of themselves as luggage all the time.
Is there anything worse than someone saying out loud the thing that you
fear? Yeah.
think about yourself?
Don't be a burden.
And oh man, so that just really stung me. I just wanted to highlight that, how hard that must be for him to hear.
Yeah.
So Merry bows and goes away unhappily, and he watches the riders begin to file away. And then it says, unnoticed a rider came up and spoke softly in the hobbit's ear. Where will wants not, a way opens, so we say. And so I have found myself. And Merry looks up and sees that it's the suicidal, well-knit young man. And he goes, you wish to go whither the Lord of the Mart goes. I see it in your face. Merry says, I do. Then you shall go with me. I will bear you before me under my cloak until we are far afield, and this darkness is yet darker. Such goodwill should not be denied. Say no more to any man, but come. And he's like, who are you? And they're like, oh, don't you know me? And he's like, no, I don't know you. And he goes, then call me Durnhelm.
Durnhelm was less in weight than many men, though lithe and well knit in frame. I'm not sure the first time I read this if I knew that this was Eowyn.
All right, everybody. Some bad news. The last few minutes of our audio somehow didn't get rendered. So we have to come back and just finish the chapter a couple weeks later.
Yeah, it's okay because I have a cold now, so it's better.
Yeah, your voice is just going to sound really deep and sultry.
Like how I sound in my head.
So we're just going to wrap it up and just finish the chapter really quickly. The last thing that you said, Logan, was when I was a child, I'm not sure that I understood that this was Eowyn.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't. Which is kind of embarrassing. Looking back at it now, it's pretty, I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, that's nice. Some guy picked him up.
Someone named Durnhelm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's obviously Eowyn, right?
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, this, of course, is a really important plot point because it allows for the big revelation that she is no man, coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
What does it say about Merry and how little he knows about women that he's riding in front of a woman for several days and cannot figure out that this is a woman?
Yeah, that's really funny. He's like, oh, he's just really, what does he say? I can't remember.
Lithe and well knit.
Lithe and well knit. Yeah. It's so funny.
Did you look up what Durnhelm means?
I didn't because I knew you would tell me what it meant. And you've told me before, actually. But I want to hear it again.
So Durn means secret or hidden in Anglo-Saxon.
Well, sure. So secret helmet. And he's got a helmet on anyway, or she.
If she is telling people that her name is Durnhelm, and these people speak Anglo-Saxon,
you think they would be able to figure it out?
It's hey, my name is Hidden Identity.
Yeah.
My name is Hidden Helmet. Secret Helmet.
Secret helmet, yeah. Concealed helmet. That's funny.
Wasn't there another Dern thing? Wasn't the place where they had the moat Derndangle? Would you look up Derndangle and see if it means hidden dingle?
Derndangle was a hollow in the south of Fangorn Forest used by the Ents from time immemorial as a place where they met in Entmoot. A dingle is a tree-shadowed dell. The archaic Dern, also seen in Dernhelm, means secret, hidden.
I'm impressed with myself for remembering Dern.
Yeah, Derndingle. I wouldn't remember the Derndingle.
One of the funniest words in the entire book.
It's a great word, Derndingle.
So after Dernhelm scoops up Mary, they join the rest of this company that's riding to war. And it says, and as they rode, rumor came of war in the north. Lone men riding wild brought word of foes assailing their east borders, of orc hosts marching in the wold of Rohan. So war is already upon them.
Yeah.
Aemir lets out a battle cry. He says, ride on, ride on. Too late now to turn aside. The Finns of Entwash must guard our flank. Haste now we need. Ride on. And the chapter closes. And so King Theoden departed from his own realm, and mile by mile the long road wound away. And the beacon hills marched past, but their fires were quenched. All the lands were gray and still, and ever the shadow deepened before them, and hope waned in every heart. It's an in-betweener chapter, but there's still lots of little things to celebrate and enjoy in this chapter, I think.
Yeah, I like spending time with Rohan Ease.
Yeah. Rohirrim.
Rohirrim. They I don't know, I love the, like, you know, each what nation or something has a really distinct culture. And the more we get to, you know, spend time, I just think it's so fun to kind of like see how those things differ and
Big time.
And I don't know, Tolkien's such a master at that kind of thing.
Yeah. And he clearly loved each culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for listening along with us this week. If you want to support the podcast, the best thing that you can do for us is subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and a blurb, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube. And of course, if you want to find out more about us, you can always go to waywardwizards.com or email us at info@waywardwizards.com. We hope that you'll join us next week for Book 5, Chapter 4, The Siege of Gondor.
And until next time, take all these things and bear them to good fortune.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Why do they need mustard? The mustard of Rohan. Is it spicy brown mustard or just like a standard yellow?
Cutting that cheesy shit out of here and get that out of my face. Logan, we swore that we would never tell bad jokes in this podcast.
This is why you should put this at the end after the music.